Today we're going to be going over a really simple glow effect that's made in Photoshop. I'm going to go over why I make it the way I do, and I'm going to go over some benefits of doing it that way. Alright, so hopping right in, here's our first image. It's black and white, and it has a really strong light source at the top of the image. This is something I really recommend having if you're going to do a glow effect of any kind. Having a softer image that doesn't have a super defined light source makes the glow not as effective. And you'll see what I mean when I hop over to this image, which is, in my opinion, pretty nice, but there isn't as defined or clear of a distinction between where our whites are, our highlights are, and where our midtones are. Obviously our shadows are pretty dark, but what we're gonna be glowing is our brighter values, and they all kind of blend together up at the top left, whereas in our first photo here, it's pretty clear that the brightest part of our image is right in the middle in this kind of triangle, essentially right in the middle of the image. All right, so for the first picture, we're gonna take it into Photoshop. I'm going to be using Photoshop and Lightroom 2023. It's the newest editions that just came out. So, first thing we're going to do is unlock our background. So we're going to go ahead and press Command J to duplicate our layer. Then we're going to select this layer, go into our select menu, and then we're going to choose color range. Why am I doing color range when this is a black and white photo? Well, because color range also selects our luma values, luma being luminance, and that's really helpful. We want to select essentially the brightest chunk of our image for this glow effect. Effectively, what I'm going to be doing is selecting the highlight here, and then I'm going to blur it, and then that's it. That's literally all a glow is. It's just a blurred version of the highlights of your image. So I'm going to take the fuzziness down to about there, because we can see down here a little bit of that tint is being selected, and that's honestly okay with me, but I don't want like the people and stuff glowing as well. So around 21 is okay. So there's our selection. With this still selected, I'm not going to press anything except Command J again. This copies those highlights onto a new layer. Alright, so I'm going to make the two layers underneath layer 1 invisible so we can see what exactly we've selected, and we can see it's literally just the highlights. Alright, so I've selected layer 1. I'm going to go into my right click menu by clicking on that layer 1 and convert to smart object. What this allows me to do now is apply smart filters to it. And the smart filter that I'm most interested in is our Gaussian blur. Right away, we can see there's something pretty interesting happening. What I want you to take away from this Gaussian blur, and kind of the blurs in general when it comes to the glow effect, is too much blur and you can't really see the effect, and too little blur, you also can't really see the effect. We have to meet it somewhere halfway. Right here we can see just the edges are starting to blur a little bit. Let's make these invisible again, add a solid black underneath it so we can see exactly what we're doing. So this is what we've selected. I'm going to go back into this, do our Gaussian blur, and now we can really see what's exactly happening. So too little blur, nothing's going on. Too much blur, and the whole thing has disappeared. So let's go to right about where you can see the blur kind of stops brightening everything up, right around there. So this is really solid starting point. I'm going to make these two visible again. And if we toggle the visibility of our glow layer, we can see there is an awesome, fuzzy, beautiful glow happening right in that triangle, just like I wanted. Now, I'm going to call this glow, and I'm going to put it in a group by pressing Command G, renaming that group to glow. Why did I put this into a group? Because if I want multiple instances of this glow, which often I do, having it in a group makes it the most editable, the most accessible. So what do we have? We have about 182 pixels of glow. It's pretty good. What we're going to do now is we're going to Command J and duplicate that, but I don't want the same exact amount of glow happening. So I'm going to go back into our Gaussian blur, And I'm gonna drop it down to about 60. About 56 is okay. There we go. And I'm gonna do one more. Just duplicate this. It doesn't really matter which one you duplicate because we've made this all procedural. They're all smart objects. They're all completely editable. If for whatever reason you want to make one of these glows red and the other one blue, you absolutely can do that. But in this instance, we're keeping everything white. And let's see, our first one was 180, so let's go for around 300 with this one. All right. So as you can see, we've kind of blown out the highlights here. So I'm going to go into my opacity for this whole group and decrease it down to about 70%. We toggle this glow, and we can see there is a wicked amount of glow coming up the top. It's exactly what I wanted. I wanted this to feel like kind of ethereal, kind of like these people are in a marketplace and the sun is not beating down on them. It's a pleasant place to be. So there's a nice little glow coming off the top. All right, so I think that image looks pretty good. Here's a before, here's an after. Moving on, going back to Lightroom, we're gonna select this image and edit this in Photoshop. And I'm going to use this as an example to illustrate that not all images look better necessarily with glow. As you can see, the glow in this image is already pretty substantial. There isn't a hard divide between our highlights and shadows like there was in the previous image. So let's just see what happens. Unlock this, Command J it, just for safety. Then we're going to select that first, then select color range. We're going to select the bright parts. You can see I can get really fuzzy with this selection before the shadows start to get selected. So I'm going to stop it right about there. Now, a whole host of information now has been selected. We're going to duplicate that. Let's add another black layer so we can see exactly what we've done, just like before. And you can see almost the entire sky has been selected as well as what's on the lake. That's totally fine. What we're going to do now is convert this to a smart object, filter it, blur it, Gaussian blur it. And let's make this back down to 150 again. And let's see how this looks. In the case of this photo, I'm not really sold on at least this much glow. So let's go back into our Gaussian blur and kind of pull this down a little bit. I want something that is glowy, is ethereal, but I don't want it so opaque. I just want it hanging out in the sidelines almost. So it's there, we still have our details in the clouds, and we have a little bit of spillover into the shadows, a little bit of light happening. All right, here's a before, and here's an after. Our images look pretty different, but in my opinion, they look pretty good. I hope this gave you a clear understanding of how to create your own glow filters and how to kind of edit them procedurally. Just to kind of recap, first we selected the brightest parts of our image, then we duplicated that onto their own layer. We converted that duplication into a smart object, and then we applied a smart blur to it, just in case I have to change my mind later or whoever I'm shooting for changes their mind once they get the photos. I can go back into Photoshop and edit that quickly. All right, have a great day. Maybe you'll feel like posting these photos, maybe you won't, but at the end of the day, if you enjoyed making them, that's all that matters. Peace out.